if we chronologically see what had happened to us, it was purely due to certain issues with regard to the fundamentals of the economy.
100,000 is the tax-free income, but that is considered to be one of the highest income tax-free incomes within the South Asian region. So are we complaining?
Sri Lankan Airlines, she would have never ever gone in that.
Yeah.
Now when you number, a taxpayer registration number, you have to have it.
Hello and welcome to Learning Pod, brought to you exclusively by Infinity Learning Space. Today we have a very special individual that is with us who serves as the Chief Manager, Zonal Head of the Business Banking Department of a leading commercial bank in Sri Lanka with over 14 years of experience in the banking industry. He is also a fellow Chartered Accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and a member of the Institute of Chartered Management Accountants, and also holds a BSc Financial Management Special Degree from University of Jayawardenepura and a Master's in Financial Economics from University of Colombo. We are absolutely thrilled and honored to have with us Mr. Nilendra Vithanage. Hello Mr. Vithanage, how are you? Thank you for joining Learning Pod.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation and for the Infinity team. So let's do it.
Yes, absolutely. And we are so thrilled because today we have a very special setup, a different setup from our usual setup, to start with our special podcast to speak about very relevant information, relevant and trending topics. So let's start with the economy. A very trending and very important topic. Very interesting topic. Let's speak about 2024 because we had a wonderful year, but also a very challenging year.
Exactly.
And this 2024 served as, it was a testing year. It was a very trying year. So let's speak a little bit about it, but let's start from the beginning because there's obviously a lot to speak about the economy. Let's start from where it began. We had a lot of debt. We were in bankruptcy. We had one of the worst economic crisis in 2022, which was when it started, but then we slowly and gradually came up. What was the reason behind it?
Okay, so it's a kind of a good introductory question. Dumindra, say 2024, Sri Lanka was on a kind of a crossroad. So we could have either gone towards yet another disaster, but fortunately, due to certain the decisions taken by the government, decisions taken by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, as well as the sacrifices made by the people of this country, I think Sri Lanka recovered remarkably. I think better than many people have expected, and registered a growth of approximately 5.5% growth in the last quarter. So that I would say is a hallmark of the achievements that we have made. So if we chronologically see what had happened to us, it was purely due to certain issues with regard to the fundamentals of the economy. Two things that had impacted us severely. Forget about the politics, right? The two things that had impacted severely on us was number one, which was the deficit in our balance of payment. Balance of payment means the dollars coming in and the dollars going out through our merchandise exports, the service exports, as well as the imports that we make. So the deficit in balance of payment, I would say the deficit in dollars resulted in the rupee depreciated and the dollar appreciated. You could have remembered 182, it went up to about 375. That's one aspect. On the other side, the deficit in the government budget. So on one side, the balance of payment crisis, on the other side, the budget deficit. So you would have remembered the government at that time, 2022, resorted into money printing. So they printed money again and again and again. So it resulted in ultimately the inflation skyrocketing to official numbers of 70% per annum. So you know how we experienced how tough the time was. So that we call as twin deficit in the balance of payment as well as in the government budget. So those two deficits has resulted in the crisis and the collapse, and also to part the issue with regard to the COVID and the subsequent issues with regard to, let's say, I would say the COVID has impacted our tourism sector. Now you know when the tourism sector goes well, how prosperous the country is. So when the tourism sector is zero, how it impacted. And the second one is the foreign remittances, which has impacted. So overall, this was the reason, and some decisions that the government has taken also impacted. So that's the past. So fast forward 2024. 2024, it was, I would say, the time period where the government has imposed severe taxes, right, in terms of the business, in terms of, I would say, the personal income. So taxes were there. And also government has made certain good decisions at that time, the policymakers, in terms of curtailing of expenditure and also increasing government revenue. Those were there. And the crisis was as a reason of those two twin deficit, and the policies that the central bank and the government has taken impacted those two deficits. Now let's say at a time when the tourism was going up, ultimately what had happened, the dollar inflows were there. And also the debt restructuring also started happening. We had approximately quite a large quantity of, if my memory is correct, $14 billion worth of short-term borrowings of the government. It's not the long-term borrowings that is impacting, short-term borrowings. Approximately 14 billion, which is denominated as Sri Lanka development bonds and international sovereign bonds. These should have been revolved, but they were not being revolved because our sovereign rating has come down. You would have heard about Moody's, Standard & Poor's rating. Those ratings were near default. So at that time, the government can't go into the international markets and borrow again. So what happened was these debt were also restructured. So say if you had to pay 100 rupees tomorrow, now what the lenders say, we don't need 100 rupees tomorrow. You pay it after 3 years, 20 rupees each for 5 years. So when that happens, what will happen? The burden on us will come down. So that has also happened. That is also impacted positively on us. So that was another positive thing. The effecting of the external restructure, that had also happened. So you would have remembered by, let's say, latter part of 2024, gradually our economic woes were receding. And ultimately at the end of, let's say, month of December, Sri Lanka officially declared that we have come out of the crisis and we have now not, I would say, bankrupt anymore. So now 2024-25 is a fresh start. So we will, when the discussion goes on, I will tell you what are the opportunities we have in the given context, what sort of opportunities we have to, from this crisis, to leap forward and to become a kind of another tiger economy, which we used to be during the time of 2005 to 2015. We had a kind of a very high growth rate, but so again going back to those kind of days.
So maybe 2025 would be the year of hope and responsibility indeed, right?
Yes.
So speaking about, there was, like you mentioned, there were a lot of debt, there were taxes introduced, but there was also the IMF coming in, where they brought in certain conditions and saying that, you need to do this as a government, and that including things like taxes, which became a big concern for most of our, for most of the citizens in Sri Lanka. Why is it actually fair what they did, or rather the tax, there were slabs included, but turns out some of the income is actually, because it's 100,000 I believe at the moment, 100,000 is the tax-free income, but that is considered to be one of the highest income, tax-free incomes within the South Asian region. So are we complaining for nothing, or is it actually fair?
See, now who went into bankruptcy? It's us. So who came to assist us? It's the IMF. So the situation was that for previous, let's say, some years, Sri Lanka has gone to IMF several times, right? And we obtained their assistance on several instances to support our balance of payment. But now this time the issue was so critical that you would have remembered that even the essential items were not there for people to purchase. So at that time, imagine now if you are a lender and I am a borrower, and you know that previously also you have advised me several times, say not to do that, not to do this, and you lend me money and I have paid you, but let's say, but same reason again and again I am coming and asking you money. So at that time, what you will do? You will say, hey, this time I will give you money, but you have to do this, you have to do that. Otherwise, I will not help you again. You get my reason, no? Because our sovereign rating was down, no one there to lend us, we can't import our essential fuel and all things like that. So at that time, a person who is supporting lending will not come without a condition. They will anyway will give us conditions. So basically those conditions may be from, let's say, a layman's angle, a normal person who doesn't know much of economics, from their angle, that will be a kind of a burden on them. But imagine if that crisis continued for another 1 or 2 years, what would have happened? Now that economic crisis thereafter would have turned up into a social crisis. If it was a social crisis, Domindra, then we are not talking about these things. Then we would have talked about, let's say, a civil war sometimes, things like that, because people predicted that, right? You could have remembered, people predicted for a food security issue, right? So fortunately that was not happened. So if IMF support was not there, the next in line disasters were that. So fortunately, as well as because of the decisions that were taken and also the conditions, stringent conditions imposed by IMF, that was averted. So these conditions, say few conditions that the IMF came up in, say, as you correctly said, increasing the income tax rates. So we know that the tax rates were so high, and personally myself and you would have also been taxed and huge amounts. But the point was that tax revenue was needed for the government to bridge the budget deficit. Because if the government doesn't make the tax revenue, then what would have happened? Then government had to resort to back again to printing money. IMF will not like it because it's their money that they have given. Don't forget, they have lent us $2.9 billion on tranches, right? When no one else was there to help us. So at that time, they want us, the government basically, to increase their income for not to fall into the debt trap once again. And also the IMF came up and IMF said, hey, you have to restructure some of your loss-making state-owned enterprises. Now those are good things, right? Because we can't, from myself and your tax money, we can't spend on colossal amounts on these loss-making, inefficient government enterprises, right? It's our hard-earned money. So isn't that a good condition? It's a good condition. And many people had a kind of a worry, if you can remember during that time, they had a worry about, let's say, the domestic restructure was parked into EPF, Employee Provident Fund. Now, they said that Employee Provident Fund, the returns were curtailed, reduced. If you can remember, right? Now, I'm asking our audience also to not to forget the things, right? Remember. So, when people were so worried about the EPF, because it's their hard-earned money. But today, if you come back right now and 2025, fast forward, if you see, the EPF last year had gained some 60 billion rupees worth, if my data is correct, from stock market trading, stock market investments. So it happened, the EPF, now everybody thought EPF would make colossal losses, but it didn't. It made huge profits, and that profits is for you and I, right? Because why? Because of those IMF, the economic conditions were improved, and because of that, the asset values of the companies that the EPF has invested has gone up. Now, if that wouldn't happen, the EPF will incur massive losses. That's our money. And also, if these conditions were not there, then the government had to print money. If the government printed money, what would have happened? Then, to buy a loaf of bread, we could have taken money in a wheelbarrow. So, because of those policy decisions, the conditions like, let's say, increasing taxes, increasing interest rates of loans, what would have happened was they have targeted the disposable income of people. So when for a short period of time, when the people is spending less, Then what will happen? When they are spending less, their demand on the products will be less, then the prices will come down. So you would have remembered 70% inflation came down to kind of now for certain items it's a deflation. 0. That's also not good, but it's a temporary issue. So for to say IMF conditions were needed, because if those conditions were not there, a repeated issue could have happened. And even in any case, I'm a banker. Bankers are giving loans based on conditions.
So speaking about, because you mentioned about how state-owned enterprises are also that, you know, that they are being restructured in a way so that
Yes.
it's not burdened on the
Taxpayers.
normal taxpayer. So you're saying that it's good because there are like there are about seven, I think, key state-owned enterprises which are being considered for restructuring, and I believe their losses
Yeah.
are currently being absorbed by the government. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think there were some comments recently saying that they would be privatized. So are you saying that it may be a good thing?
So, as a advocate of free market, or let's say the market economy, I personally believe, except for certain critical industries like, let's say, energy, power, education, or maybe, let's say, healthcare, other than that, the government should not be in business. That's something that I personally believe. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
But our audience will have different view,
Yes.
different opinion. So let's say the state-owned enterprises you mentioned, like let's say airline,
Yeah.
then let's say certain transportation services like the state-owned government railway, or maybe the bus CTB,
Yeah.
that, or maybe our CPETCO, the electricity board, they should also run as a business.
Okay.
Those are business. Business has to run as a business. If you take our railway, it's a department. How, Dumindra, imagine, how can a business run as a department? Department means you have to go through from person to person. It's really difficult, right? So businesses have to run as business. Now, if I give you a classic example, some 20-30 years ago, I think your parents would remember, 20-30 years ago, to get a mobile, what you call landline phone connection, you had to wait for months and months and months.
Okay.
What had happened was, we had to pay a deposit, we had to wait until, at that time, the government telecom company gives us the connection.
Okay.
Then what happened? Some years after, the entire telecommunication market was open, and then the Sri Lanka Telecom also privatized.
Okay.
Then what happened? There were more players came in, cost reduced, technology came in. Now, if you take in mobile phone or whatever, the Sri Lanka in our technology is on par with most of the Asian countries. So technology came in, faster connection. Nowadays, you just have to go log into their website or app and you get the connection, right? So to that extent. But if that was done solely by the government company during that time, like that time, still you have to wait for maybe 1 year, 2 years to get your connection. That's
Maybe not even.
maybe not even.
Yeah.
So that's what. Because of that, what happened? Because of that, the Sri Lanka Telecom itself, its efficiency was also increased. And now Sri Lanka Telecom, even though it's a government company, runs as a fully market private company, Sri Lanka Telecom. And it is giving a whopping amount of tax revenue to the government rather than becoming a loss-making entity. So why can't we do that to other loss-making government-owned enterprises as well? I'm not saying to just to go and privatize it.
Yeah.
But what we can do, bring in private technology,
Okay.
the management, right? You can partly privatize it, the ownership can be handed over. So these kind of things has to happen.
Okay.
If you take Singapore, right? We all talk about Singapore now, right? So Singapore, there is an investment holding company called Temasek.
Okay.
Many people would have heard about it. Just use ChatGPT and see the Temasek investment holding company. So Temasek, as the investment holding company, they manage number of Singaporean government businesses as businesses.
Okay.
Say the Singapore Airlines, the DBS Bank, they all are government owned, state owned, but run as private organizations by Temasek. I don't ask the government to introduce Temasek kind of organization here, but think, right? Because you are there to make the decisions. No? Think how to make these organizations more efficient. Because if you don't do that, what will happen? The innocent poor taxpayers continuously will be paying taxes to finance those losses. Now, one time I heard something that for people, let's say a poor village Achiamma may sometimes pay value-added tax to buy a soap bar, and that money will be funded to, let's say, finance the losses in Sri Lankan Airlines. Sri Lankan Airlines, she would have never ever gone in that.
Yeah.
That's quite how unfair it is, right?
Yeah.
It's quite unfair because she has not used that particular service, but she is funding that loss. So, but she will be, let's say, taking government medical care or whatever. But
Yeah.
say, so that kind of fairness has to be there for the people who are paying taxes. So that kind of thing, continuously we have to go ahead with the reforms, because if the reforms are stopped, reforms has to be there. Reforms are stopped, what will happen? Again, this crisis will come in another way. You would have heard countries like Argentina. Argentina again and again fallen into default. Several times they defaulted. So for us to once and for all get rid of this particular burden is to continuously reform these state-owned enterprises, because state-owned enterprises should run as businesses, not like a place where you put all the henchmen into that and
Yeah.
just run as a kind of a disaster.
True. But also, I'm just going to go back to how you mentioned that the specific grandmother that could be from the village could be taking use of medical
Yes.
healthcare benefits and all of that. But is she actually getting the maximum benefit? Because when you spoke about privatization, efficiency and all of that, a lot of people, most of Sri Lanka can only afford public healthcare, public transport and all of that. But then in most cases, even though they're taxpayers, when they go to a government hospital, they have to wait for months. They're given
Yes.
months to come back and actually
For a
get
critical surgery or whatever.
Yes, and then or to just simply get an input on what is wrong with them. Is that fair for them? Because they're paying taxes, but the healthcare system is, they are not actually getting the maximum. So are you saying that, is there anything that they can do for this?
Yes. Now, say, first and foremost, I have to say that Sri Lanka has one of the best public healthcare systems in the world, right? Now, we don't hear that we have people dying because of lack of medication. No?
Yeah.
So somehow credit has to go to the respective
Definitely.
previous governments, the health sector employees during
Yeah.
the previous periods. So
They've-
maintaining the system.
Time and time,
Yes.
they've proved that they are great
That's
at
what,
it.
because
Yeah.
our human development index itself is so high, it's sometimes on par with most of the upper developed countries.
Correct.
The problem that Dumindra asked is that how fair is it? No, for a person who pays a tax to wait for months and months to get that medical kind of medication.
Yeah.
So that's not fair actually, right? That's not fair. That's why I'm always saying people who has to pay taxes should pay. People who have to pay taxes should pay in the taxes. So when they pay, what will happen? The government can allow these services to many more people. Now, people have to wait in a queue because why? The funding is limited. No, funding is limited. Sometimes maybe ICU beds are very limited. Maybe number of bypass surgeries that the government can afford with the kind of amount of tax collections is less. So the problem that we have is the people who are paying taxes are very less. The same amount of people are paying the VAT, they are paying the income tax, everything. But there is a large proportion in the economy who are not paying tax.
Okay.
So what the duty of the government has to be is that they capture the people who are not paying taxes but who are eligible to pay the tax has to be captured.
But last year, they also introduced a certain rule that if you're above 18,
Yeah.
you have to open a file, tax file. You have that TIN number would be used for
Yes.
say opening a bank account and everything. So how is it still that they're not paying taxes?
But it didn't work, right? People opposed, right? You would have remembered the amount of social media aha-hoo which came in when everybody was asked to open up a tax TIN number, right? So that's how our people react. That should not be right now. People expect a kind of Switzerland kind of benefits, but they are not willing to pay, right?
yeah.
That should not happen, right? Now, when you are asked to have a TIN number, a taxpayer registration number, you have to have it, right? Because without that, if you have traveled to Australia, if you have traveled to many, even India, right? If you don't have a Aadhaar number, if you don't have it, you can't get any service. So, kind of now, the government should introduce this, and as much as possible, they have to make these transactions through the banking system, and the relevant taxes should be collected from the people, because the TIN number, that particular thing, has stopped in the middle of the way. Because of that, the people who should have been paying taxes, they have not paid. So at least going forward in the next few years, what I expect, what I want from the government side also, is to bring more and more people who are eligible to pay the taxes should pay. Then that particular innocent mother or father from the village who is supposed to do a bypass surgery within 3 months, who is given a 6 months period of waiting time, then she will able to get that treatment quickly. Then the government has more funds, more ICU beds can be obtained, more surgeries can be done. So then that will happen.
Okay.
So my solution for that is expand the kind of tax net. Then the people who don't pay taxes will also be caught. Now, we all talk of, let's say, only few people pay in taxes. But see the road, the amount of the kind of luxury vehicles are going on, no? So that has to happen.
Okay, perfect. So since you mentioned about luxury vehicles, I'm gonna take that and ask another question relating to it, because luxury vehicles is indeed considered a luxury here now, especially now, because last year, of course, imports were not, it was restricted, but now it's slowly in phases. It's coming back out, or it's believed to start, there's
from February onwards.
Yes. And so speaking about luxury vehicles, the younger generation, there are many that dream of getting a luxury vehicle, but they don't really want to get a new vehicle. They want to get like second-hand vehicles or so on. But it's still so expensive. And that is mostly because of the taxes. So how do we, as the younger generation, because vehicles, houses, even when you go to a restaurant, it's very expensive. Why is that? Is there a solution to that?
Yes. So take the first one, the vehicles. So I accept the vehicle prices are exorbitantly so high in terms of even second-hand vehicles. Sometimes a young professional or maybe young executive, for them it's really difficult to purchase a kind of a good quality vehicle, which is a kind of having the necessary safety regulations and things like that. And on the other hand, we as the population also has to understand that we have an issue, we have a crisis, right? The crisis is that still we are having a kind of foreign currency issue in terms of the country, because this cannot be opened up rapidly. So the first and foremost, I agree with what the government has done. Government has opened up the vehicle imports on certain vehicles, the lorries, the taxis and the double cabs and all. So gradually, I would say little by little, pace by pace, they will open up the imports. So anyway, when the vehicles are coming into the market, definitely there will be a kind of a market price reduction in terms of certain vehicles. But don't expect the prices will to go down by 1 million, 2 million. It won't happen. Now, I can still remember my father who sold a van, Hiace van, in 1999 for 150,000. I still see the same vehicle in advertisements to be sold for 4 million.
Okay.
Now see the situation, right? Vehicle prices will not go down.
Yeah.
So if you have a kind of a myth on your mind that the vehicle prices will go down, it will not happen.
Okay.
It will not happen. And also to a certain extent, I am agreeing with the government also to have a taxes on that, because for the country we can't bear it, right? The amount of import, because if it goes beyond $1 billion of hard-earned money, now imagine from where we fund these dollars. These dollars are coming from the people who work in Middle East and those hard-earned money, or maybe the tourism income, or maybe other income that we have. So gradually, pace by pace, they will open it up. So one thing to afford a vehicle, several things that the government can do: make more assemblies here, assemble vehicles here, then only people can afford those vehicles. So that can happen. And I'm also not a fan of, let's say, bringing down all the vehicles at low cost to here.
Yeah.
But on one side, the government can help the people through improving the public transport.
Okay.
See the situation of public transport here in Sri Lanka, right? Now the city of Colombo, if you go to any other part of the world, maybe forget about South Asia, if you go to East Asia, our city is on par with them.
Okay.
If you go to, let's say, Bangkok, if you go to kind of Manila or maybe Jakarta, our city is on par with on all these East Asian countries. But we have a serious issue with regard to public transport.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to other countries, you have the buses which are running on time, buses which are comfortable,
Safe.
maybe safe driving,
Yeah.
right? And what you call no hassle for the people. And also they have rapid transport, the metros,
Yes.
right? Which we lack here.
Okay.
If the government comes up with a solution for the public transport, then the younger generation will not ask for vehicles.
Yeah, they will use it.
They will use it. So make the public transport more convenient for the people. Bring on all these low bed buses, kind of comfortable public transport that is available in the globe. Now, in other countries, you don't see a conductor in a bus, right? You have to tap your card and just go. That card you can use for MRT, you can use for train, you can use for bus. The same card, the prepaid card, you can use. So those are not that kind of difficult decisions that the government can make. So when the government do them, I will know the people will not ask for cars.
Yeah.
At that time, they will keep the car at home. They will just go on a bus. So that's what happens in Singapore. That's what happens in, let's say, Bangkok.
Even in Sri Lanka, I think in the highway buses or long distance buses, a lot of people actually choose to go in those buses now. I
Yes,
believe. Yeah.
because if you travel to Jaffna or if you travel to Matara, rather than going in your own vehicle,
Yeah.
get a highway bus, or maybe if you're going to Jaffna through first class AC train, it's quite convenient for you. It's quite easy for you, right? So the only solution that the government can have for the vehicles issue, yes, gradually pace by pace open it up, but without reducing the prices, because I think central bank governor also said they will not reduce the prices, and that's the way to go.
Okay.
But as much as possible, make sure public transport comfortable for the people. When the public transport is comfortable, definitely the kind of demand for vehicles will gradually recede down. Then our roads will be also more safe. Then these kind of three-wheelers, people will go on motorbikes. Then people will gradually move to public transport. So the people's lives will be saved. Per day, about 8 people die in Sri Lanka because of the road accidents.
Okay.
So that's quite unfortunate, right? So the best solution for that is not to make taxes reduce on the vehicles, but to make public transport more efficient and more freely available in a comfortable level.
Yeah, and facilities, infrastructure.
Yes, that's what.
improvements. Okay, that's very interesting, because actually speaking about facilities and like a good lifestyle, a lot of people believe, or a lot of people have thought that maybe it might be better to migrate.
Yes.
A lot of people, indeed, actually, like the Sri Lanka, the SLBFE, they actually said that that between January to September 2024, there was a 10% increase compared to September 2023.
The migrations.
The migration for labor,
Yes.
the labor migration, workforce. So in that case, when a lot of people are moving out for jobs abroad, There is a big problem because in one way we are losing out on skilled workforce for, because a lot of people are also saying that, oh, okay, we're not seeing that capacity in people. So that's a big problem. But on the other hand, they are also sending remittances. We have an inflow of remittances. What are your thoughts on that?
Migration, for me, it's quite a personal choice.
Okay.
Right? It's a personal choice which we have to make after evaluating all aspects. So, if you take now during last 2 years, 2022 to 2024, some people made migration decisions without evaluating the big picture. Now many people still speaking to me, hey, we made a bad decision, incorrect decision of migrating. Some people have migrated to UK, which is I would say already was in kind of economic trouble before us, and they settled down in UK with their kids and all. That was a kind of for many people it was a hardship. Some people went into Finland even, right? Maybe for different other countries as well. Migration is a personal choice. If you like, you can migrate because the government or anyone can't stop it because people have the passport. You find a place, you just go, right? But making a kind of a long-term decision like settling down somewhere based on temporary economic issues in a country, making a long-term decision based on a temporary problem does not match.
Okay.
That's what happened to many people last year.
Okay.
I'm repeating that again. Making a long-term decision based on a temporary question was an issue, right? Okay. So at that time, if anyone still wishing to migrate, yes, you are free to migrate. It's your personal choice, but think on the big picture, right? So at that time, it's very important. If you migrate, you have to migrate with a skill. Without skill or without a proper plan, if you migrate, you will sometimes, unfortunately, will be fallen from the current status of your life to a kind of a rock bottom. So therefore, be careful when you are making that decision. Go there. If you are going, you need to have a skill, a particular skill that particular country needing, and also you need to have the language to speak, and also you should have a plan. You should have a plan for you as well as for your family. That's really important. Without a plan, don't go. That's very important. Yes, people who are migrating are sending money. That's also quite good for the country. And also migration, I personally believe, is good for the country.
Yes.
Is good for the country.
More income.
More income, one thing. And on the other hand, what I see, those people never will forget Sri Lanka.
True, yeah.
They will keep on coming here. And some people will start investing as well.
Yes.
Some people start investing in apartments. Some people who do really well, right? They will invest in apartments. They will invest in different other projects. Some people start business. Some people invest in tourism sector. Right? If you take the northern region, the Jaffna and all, they start business here, right? The people who migrate during the wartime. But the only problem we have in our country, there is no policy or maybe a kind of encouragement for these people to maybe say you migrate at age 25, you stay there for 20 years or 30 years, maybe at the age of 50, at that time you should be able to come back to Sri Lanka and settle yourself here. Okay. Because I don't think at the age of 50 or 55, no one would like to stay in Canada with all this snow and all and snowstorms and let's say kind of 6 months of the year with winter and all. Yeah. I don't think 95% will love to stay there.
Yeah.
So you want the kind of the wealth, you want the kind of your upliftment of your life, but at age 50, when you achieve everything, people love to
retire at home. Yeah.
Retire at home.
Yeah.
So that's everybody's belief. That India does that well. Okay. Where they send people out, send people out, but there are mechanisms in the economy to make these people come back to here and invest, because these people come with what? They come with money, they come with knowledge, they come with opportunities, they come with all sorts of contacts, they come with that.
Okay.
So if they come here, there should be opportunities like tax benefits for them, there should be opportunities like investment opportunities pointed out to them, what are the areas they can invest. So those things has to be there. So to answer to your question, yes, we should encourage migration. Encourage migration and skilled migration. People with a skill going somewhere, earn money, settle well there, then we should encourage them to come back here after some time, because it's an opportunity for the country to gain knowledge.
Okay, sorry, I just have a clarification. So, are there when you say that there should be opportunities, are there barriers at the moment?
I don't see much of barriers, but
Okay.
say all the problems that we discussed here, issues like, let's say, the economic issues, maybe the security issues people have, or maybe public transport issues, or maybe sometimes, let's say, the how it difficult for someone to start a business here.
Yeah.
All these are the barriers actually.
Okay.
When people see these barriers, even though they like to come to Sri Lanka, they sometimes make the decision, okay,
Yeah.
we have about another 20 years to stay, so we will be staying here.
I've personally heard that as
That's
well.
what,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So when, let's say, public transport is good, when you can acquire a property easily, you are safe, and you have the opportunity here, you feel like it's like that, then people will definitely come back here.
Okay.
They will move, because in current world where you have the passport, you are a global citizen, right? You have all the right to live here one day, go to USA one day, come back Sri Lanka one day. That's the kind of ability you have. So the barriers are there are not much of big barriers, but the barriers are the smaller ones that we see,
which
everywhere.
accumulate
Yes,
eventually.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so also speaking about how when migration happens, when people go out of the country, they also promote Sri Lanka.
Yes.
And then in different ways, there are tourists coming in. We were blessed
Yes.
to witness such a high number recently.
But I have a different opinion on that.
Okay.
High number is what? What's that high number? It's only 2 million,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Take, I would say, Thailand, 30 million.
Okay.
Take Singapore, 20 million, right? Take Malaysia, more than 30 million, right? Then 2 million for what? just take, right? So
Okay.
celebrating, yes, that's good to celebrate, right? 2 million, but 2 million is not our potential, right?
What can we do more?
Yes, so we can do more is that make sure that Sri Lanka has some sort of a product to offer to the tourists, because in the international market, if you go to outside, right, if you travel around, people will travel for different purpose. There are several people who will travel for, let's say, to see all the elephants, safaris. There are certain spectrum of people.
Yeah.
There are certain spectrum of people who will like to see agriculture,
Yes.
agri-tourism. There are people like that, but we don't capitalize that much. Or maybe certain people are there who travel for fun.
Yeah.
Maybe if you take India has a booming middle class, right? It's a
Yeah.
kind of hundreds of millions of young people who have money, who have, let's say, time to travel.
Yeah.
So they want, I would say, they travel for fun. Maybe the casinos, maybe the theme parks, maybe they come for nightlife.
Okay.
So at a time when we, in Colombo, when we shut down our shops at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
and we go to sleep, how does these people will come? They will not select Sri Lanka, they will go to Thailand, they will go to Dubai.
Yeah.
So there will be certain people who will anyway will like beaches.
Yes.
They will like beach, right? They will come to Sri Lanka. That's that 2 million, right? But beyond that, there is a massive market which we have not tapped, right? So we have to create a product for each of these kind of travelers, right? The similar way that Maldives have. Maldives only has the kind of the islands. So they tap the international high-end market. But if you take a country like Thailand, which is very similar to Sri Lanka, they have the people who are coming for nightlife, people who are coming for, let's say, leisure, people who are coming for sightseeing.
Yeah.
All sorts of tourists are coming there. So that's at that time we have to somewhat open it up, right? Have a nightlife here in Colombo. So those are the things that we have to do, because celebrating getting 2 million tourists, it's good, right? But 2 million is only it's a very small fraction of the market that we have.
It's a seed.
It's only a seed which we compare with all the other big boys in the tourism industry. At a time when the Thailand is getting 30 million, 2 million is nothing.
So when we talk about income that is coming from tourism, has it actually helped our economy?
Definitely.
Okay.
So, because if you take when the tourism was not there, 2022, we crashed. But when it is you see the tourism is back again, the country is flourishing, right? So, tourism is something that we have to capitalize. The protection, the security of people, the tourists, those are things we have to take very seriously, right? You know what had happened in Easter attacks, right? So these things we have to take so seriously, because tourism is highly vulnerable for political aspects. It is highly vulnerable for social aspects. So these kind of areas also the authorities have to address.
Okay. And to finish off or to end our conversation, I have a very important question for you, because a lot of people are currently wondering if they're earning enough.
Yes.
Or, they're struggling with their finances. How would you suggest that one person, that an individual, a public citizen, can effectively manage their financial situation?
See, two things that we can do. One thing, reduce expenses. Second one, increase income. Reduction of expenses, you can do it only for a certain extent, because you can't, let's say, reduce expenses after a certain amount. But increasing of income, you can do definitely. So therefore, if you are maybe young executives, our crowd may be people who are looking at maybe the young executives in the kind of the business world. So things that you can do is always add more skills to you, because the skill that about 1 month ago gave you the promotion may not be valid in next month. Skills are continuously changing. About 2 years back, we never heard of AI, right? We never heard of AI driven business. But right now, my business, your business, all the businesses are using AI, right? How many times we look on OpenAI, ChatGPT, just to get information, right, per day.
Some even for emails now they use AI.
Yes, it's quite common, right? It's just basic now. So we never heard of about 2 years back. So at that time, if you were a person who is a typist, your job was evaporated, right? It was just went out of the window. Now say the basic accounts and record keeping. Now it's a very common and dying job now. Accounting, bookkeeping, good old days we heard. But the same accountant, if he adds a new skill, he could have been a forensic auditor. The same accountant would have been a data analytics, right? See, the same accountant who, if he got a skill, he could have been a data analyst who will be working, and he is a business analyst by now. So he will be earning about 10 times more than working as a bookkeeper. So the same data analyst, maybe in 2 years' time, he may be asked to change the job. Because data analyst, then you have the machine learning. When you have AI, data analyst job is also now thereafter gone. So at that time, he should add a new skill. So for a person to increase income or his, I would say, revenue, what you got to do, continuously look on the market for more skills, new skills. Adding up skills will definitely make yourself demanded. You can always go for a higher salary, higher package. So that has to happen. So if you are good at on something, don't always try to earn from that itself. So skills addition is needed. So look at the market, always hunt for jobs, see where you are having opportunities. And as a rule of thumb, every 2 years time or 3 years time, because at least 3 years time, put your CV into the market and see what's the demand you have. Every 3 years. Because yes, working for 3 years, you will learn good new things in an organization. You will get 1 or 2 promotions. That's that. But don't stay in one place for so long period of time. Every 3 years, put yourself into the market and see what's the demand you have, right? So that's the dynamism you need to have. I think IT sector people are doing that, but finance sector also people have to do that, right? Because every 3 years, just you also hunt for your talent, right? Because
it's not compromising loyalty, but it's like it's improving yourself.
But loyalty is something. Working hard, giving 100% to your organization is something else. But let's say fetching a good amount of salary package is a different thing. So put yourself into the market and see what's the demand you have. And acquiring new skills is the thing that you can do, and managing your personal finance, planning for an insurance scheme, maybe having an emergency fund, 6 months savings in emergency fund, those kind of fund building you have to do. By that time, gradually, let's say, go for stock market investments, maybe mutual fund investment. Have to have them, because we don't know what will happen, right? For us, so therefore, adequate financial planning. Have some income generating assets for you, maybe stocks, maybe real estate, maybe, let's say, insurance kind of fund. Have it, because those will earn you money. So maybe your actual income, as well as have some passive income as well for you.
Yes.
That's really important.
Wonderful. What an interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Vithanage,
Pleasure.
for speaking to us and for giving us so much insight and advice. It's truly appreciated, and we absolutely love it. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
Again.
Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours. Well, stay tuned for even more interesting discussions as we continue with Infinity Learning Space, and we bring you more episodes with Learning Pod.